Hi, this is Robert. Welcome back to another edition of the High Deseret Ranch channel. We are approaching the peak flow for high water, which, if you look over there in the mountains, with all that snow, is melting off at a pretty good rate. And come look right here. You've got 4 ditches coming through right here. And this is what's called the quarter divider. This is what's called the quarter divider. So 3 ditches will continue through. We'll dam up 1 ditch right here, send it through, then down. There's actually a culvert that goes underneath this ditch to the south. And it will go through this property right here, which, again, these old timers were masters of getting water wherever they needed to. It serpentines through this property into our spring pasture of over 100 acres plus. So, these wells are prolific right here. I blocked it. I should have had a pry bar to chop through this wheel root. So I'm going to lift up this board and we're going to see what happens. It's flowing good. It's flowing real good. This irrigation company is too cheap to actually do good steel gates. So we've got to use these old cement form boards that are kind of waterproof. Oh my goodness. So these muck boots are about 18 inches high and the water's already flowing. If I go dam this up, I'm curious to see what happens. So we've dammed off 1 dam, but the 3 other ditches will go further down to different properties and different water right owners. But for us, we get this turn for 15 hours is how long we get this turn for. Take this. As you can see, it's flowing down to the south. It'll work its way through this property, right through there, and then onto our field. So let's go show you the high water ditch. The water is flowing like crazy through even the high water ditch. So there's so much water that we're taking on our turn that there's kind of a relief valve built in right here to the high water ditch. And right here is the high water ditch. It's actually the old creek bed that water would flow basically all year round, but now it's now utilized as a high water overflow ditch to get water further on down. So we're gonna move on down to our property so the boys can see just exactly where the water enters our property. And with this much high water flowing, I've got to go check the property down by the hog pens because there's quite a bit of water that's being diverted, and I've got to readjust the dam and the gate to make sure that there's not too much water coming down onto the property. It won't necessarily harm things, but it's just good to regulate somewhat. The ground is now becoming so saturated with high water that it's to the point where we just need to start sending it down that overflow ditch so it can flow to the main river that runs through this valley. Here's the second time that we've sent water down this ditch, so it shouldn't take nearly as long as the first time when there was a lot of debris, and I had to help assist that water through that ditch. So we'll hustle down to that other, to our spring pasture property and get it through the ditch. Here's the cows hanging out.
And there's Andrew, the red skin.
Alright, so now we're here at the entrance of the property. The water will come down that ditch, come underneath the road, and into that concrete ditch, and then water this pasture. Right now we're going to go check on the hog pens, do chores, check the water down there, and then we'll come back. Hi, this is Robert. Welcome back to another edition of the High Deseret Ranch channel. We are approaching the peak flow for high water, which, if you look over there in the mountains, with all that snow, is melting off at a pretty good rate. And come look right here. You've got 4 ditches coming through right here. And this is what's called the quarter divider. This is what's called the quarter divider. So 3 ditches will continue through. We'll dam up 1 ditch right here, send it through, then down. There's actually a culvert that goes underneath this ditch to the south. And it will go through this property right here, which, again, these old timers were masters of getting water wherever they needed to. It serpentines through this property into our spring pasture of over 100 acres plus. So, these wells are prolific right here. I blocked it. I should have had a pry bar to chop through the wheel over it. So I'm going to lift up this board and we're going to see what happens. Alright, so the water's going through. It's flowing good. It's flowing real good. This irrigation company is too cheap to actually do good steel gates. So we've got to use these old cement form boards that are kind of waterproof. Oh my goodness. So these muck boots are about 18 inches high and the water's already flowing. If I go dam this up, I'm curious to see what happens. So we've dammed off 1 dam, but the 3 other ditches will go down further down to different properties and different water right owners. But for us, we get this turn for 15 hours is how long we get this turn for. Take this. As you can see, it's flowing down to the south. It'll work its way through this property, right through there, and then onto our field. So let's go show you the high water ditch. The water is flowing like crazy through even the high water ditch. I want you to come along with us on the ride. All right, so we did chores. I forgot my phone. We stopped at the house to grab one of my younger daughters, and we get to the hog pens, and one of the pens is completely flooded because, long story short, I hate to cast stones at people, but the neighbor sent way too much water down the high water ditch and it couldn't handle it. They didn't know that I had it set up above this secondary head, one of the secondary gates at the one of two main high water head gates, and it washed it out. So I plugged up that hole. Now I'm literally walking through this field because I've diverted all water, and I just got back after dropping the children off. It is still flowing at about 0.75 CFS, which is like 5 gallons worth of water per second. And so now I'm in this field, and as you can see, there shouldn't be high water in this field. I don't know where. So you can see basically where the sun's setting, like right over there. Right there is where the hog pens are. And this field, and over there further, and over there further, it's completely flooding out, which, like a homeowner, having water coming out in places you don't know, or you don't want it to, or you're not familiar where the water's coming from, that's a bad thing. Well, it's the same thing here, because the fact that we're downhill from all this water, and this water is just flowing like it is, and we're still have yet to reach the peak of high water. Those mountains yonder, they've still got plenty of snow on them, and we're supposed to be pushing up into the 70s. So I'm literally just walking up into what should be eventually the hog pen property, and then this other property that I was just showing you is separated by a 40-acre parcel, and there shouldn't be a high water ditch running through here. So like a leaking pipe in a house, I've got to find the leaking pipe, so to speak, in the high water ditch and see what can be done. I can't bring equipment up into here because it's so flooded out. So I've got my trusty rancher tool that you should have in any kind of vehicle or piece of equipment, and that's a shovel. I guess, like I was talking to one of my dear friends on the phone, was next year could just be as bad or worse, and it's probably good. I always try and look for the silver lining in things, and so, you know, it could be one of those things that I'll need to remember some of this stuff in order to know just exactly what it is that needs to be done. So I can't tell. This looks like it might be a high water ditch. This isn't, I mean, it's a natural wash, but it's not a designated high water ditch. So I'm wondering, or maybe it is. It's just one I wasn't familiar with. That's just it. There's so many. Most of the old timers that built these ditches, like my grandfather, you know, they lived to their 90s, but they've passed away, and no one's really around to remember or to experience just this much high water. So sorry, seeing my chin. On YouTube a second, and Holy mackerel. Yeah. There's a whole nother high water ditch I had no idea about. So here's the far corner of the property. All right, guys, so I'm learning a lot about this high water ditch system. I had no idea where all this water is coming from. It is coming from a high water ditch, and there's these old head gates, or whatever you want to call them, sub head gates. They were obviously put in probably back in the 60s and 70s. They're so old now, they've got the colored moss growing on them. Really kind of cool looking moss because water hasn't run through it for so long. So it's dried out, gotten sun bleached, whatnot. I'll see if I can show you, post a pic up here. But anyways, it's getting dark. I've got my headlamp on. I contacted a few of the neighbors to see, because the water hasn't been flowing like this, and it's only going to continue to accumulate. Like, the volume's going to continue to increase for the next few weeks, probably into the first week of June. So I'm trying to get a hold of them to see, do they know water's going on their property now, because it wasn't before. Because that's why I say I noticed that all this water is coming, but it wasn't coming from where I thought it should be coming. And so I found the source. I believe it's actually one of the high water ditches that starts where we have a high water ditch on this property that's concreted. My grandpa put in a concrete high water ditch, and then once it actually crosses into a different section of the property, it dips underneath the primary cement ditch. And so I know where to turn some of that water out. Anyways, we just got to figure something else out, because it just can't handle. And if not, it's going to flood out. Oops, sorry. It's going to flood out me, some other folks, some people there down by the highway. And again, I don't mind this. This is what it's all about. You live and you learn, and there's new things that really can sometimes be only once or twice in your lifetime. Now, to give context, we do get high water. This kind of high water hasn't been seen in 30, even possibly 40 years. So anyway, I'm getting in my steps today. Not that I keep track, but I've now circled. I've literally walked the entire perimeter of the property now. And yeah, so. So I'm going to try and speak loud, because I don't know how well you can hear me, but I have literally walked the entire property, 160 acre the entire perimeter. So I've got definitely my steps in tonight. I came down to the second head gate. There's two head gates on this property of ours, and I'm seeing something very disturbing. We've still at least got 2, maybe 3 weeks of high water left. And you've probably seen a video before. There's 4 head gates here that go to different properties, but there's the primary head gate. And mind you, I'm taking water right now, but if I stop water or to going to my property, I want to show you this. There's maybe another 10 inches. Got the board in the way. You can see, and there's the head gate that goes to our property by the hog pens. So it's to the point where if more water comes down, we get some high. I saw tomorrow. Let me get away from the water. Tomorrow we're supposed to be a little bit cooler. Instead of, we were in the upper 70s, it's saying we'll hit possibly 70 degrees tomorrow. But if we get any kind of a rainstorm, I'm just looking at this. that one right there is our primary, it's the primary water. If it goes any higher than that, we're hosed. I don't know where else the water is going to go. No one else can take it. And that's the safety release valve, essentially. And so, yeah, that's what's disturbing to me is that they specifically built that in 1984 to when no one else had water to go anywhere else. That was the escape, the pressure release valve. And we're about 10 inches away from the top, maybe max, before it starts going everywhere. It starts going around into the ditch that I can control the gate, but if it's going up over this primary gate, like you see, I don't know where else that water is going to go. I'm ready to shut off the water to the hog pen property, but then all that water is going to come right here, and that's scary. So it's one of those things that I'm experiencing something I never experienced before, and I'm literally drinking through a fire hose right now. I'm trying to learn as much as I can, figure out what I need to do, what it is I need to do, because to the north of here, the neighbor just called me and said, the water that I've been flooding there's a 60-acre parcel that I'm flood irrigating. It is now not only irrigated all that, but 40 acres to the north, and it's now coming into his place. And so I've turned as much water as I can back in, but we're almost, it's within just less than a foot in some places in that creek bed. So whether or not any of this makes sense to you, basically the rub is it could get bad for myself and for some other neighbors around here, and hopefully they take heed. If not, they're going to be in a rude awakening when it comes to trying to control some of this high water. So, anyways, that's not the irrigation's primary concern. The irrigation company, that's up to the individual water right holders themselves to have high water. So, it's a blessing and a curse here in the high desert of the Intermountain West, over 6,000 feet. But I've got some serious business I've got to attend to now that I'm seeing what's happening. And please join me next time. And I hope that I was your ticket to help escape the ordinary and find out just what it's like to live the high life here in the high desert of the Intermountain West, only on the High Deseret Ranch channel.